So you got Nightcrawlers Volume 1 coming out through Zoop, which I've interviewed lots of other people from. I think it's fantastic. Fundraising campaign group that does for graphic novels. Before we get into that though, here at Bionic Buzz, we're all about people's passions. Tell me where your passion for comic books and graphic novels kind of came from that made you want to get into it. Is a certain a comic artist inspired or something that was just natural for you as a child?
I guess it started as a kid, like most kids, like, I was born in the 80s, so I'm, 1980s, so I'm an 80s kid. And, a lot of kids during that period, their favorite comics were stuff that was based on things they loved, like, Transformers, G.I. Joe, stuff like that. And then from there, it went into, Marvel. X-Men was my jam for a long, long, long time. Yeah, so it's like if you were a kid in the 80s or 90s, like you're reading Marvel comics.
Oh yeah, I tried to collect every X-Men classic book I could get back in the 80s. Yeah. yeah. Like, and people don't realize how great we got it now, because I wanted Marvel content, especially on the big screen and animation. And then, I remember when the Punisher, I'm talking about Dolph Punisher, came out in the 80s. I couldn't find a single theater in my state of Maryland where I grew up that was showing it.
I didn't see that until VHS, and I was like,
even that was hard to find. I remember when it finally came out.
Yeah, I was like, wait, they made a Punisher movie? What was this?
Yeah, and then he only ended up wearing the skull and crossbone ones in that whole thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like when that Captain America movie came out where the Red Skull was Italian. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But man, things got going, especially in the 90s when Spider-Man and then the X-Men classic cartoons. Oh my goodness. So speaking of animation though, I saw this was Nightcrawlers is for fans of Don Bluth animated films. I absolutely love Don Bluth's films. Talk about his inspiration, I guess, on you, because Land Before Time, so good, and all his other stuff he did.
Yeah. No, he was a huge, there was a period growing up when I was first started off wanting to be an artist, tracing pages of, basically like those big Disney books, storybooks that had all the art in them from the movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I was getting more and more into art. I even went for a year before I moved to Puerto Rico when I was living here in New York, years ago, like 95 to 96, I went to the High School of Art and Design, and my plan was to be a comic book artist and a cartoonist, go basically, work for Disney, and then, maybe one day work for Don Bluth, and then, draw comic books on the side or something like that. And I still remember when I was a kid watching Land Before Time with my mom, when I was like little, and just being scared, and, his movies like Secret of Nimh, An American Tale, and he just had movies that weren't afraid to touch on a bit of darkness, knowing that kids, they're going to be scared, but it's natural for them to be scared. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, well, we can't show them something a little dark because then, that's traumatizing. Like, no, it's like, no, you don't want to go full on dark and like bad, just stuff that's inappropriate, but, touching on, the fears that, kids have, like American Tale, abandonments, stuff like that, like being lost from your parents and, all those things, things that kids can relate to, or that, parents can relate to that are watching it with their kids, that, fears they had when they were a kid, these things, if you look at it, like there's a commonality between like Land Before Time and American Tale and Secret of Nimh. And Secret of Nimh, it's, it's more of the mother's fear, it's from the mother's end, but in Land Before Time and American Tale, it's from the kid's end, and that's the thing. So that's, looking at the landscape, like there's so many great, kid, all ages and young adult graphic novels that are coming out. But I wanted to do something that was a little, I guess you could say, quote unquote, edgier, something that was reminiscent of Don Bluth. We were touching something that you see more in novels, but you don't tend to see more in graphic novels, where you're touching a bit on that darkness, and the idea that kids.
I dig that. I like that a lot. Yeah. So tell us about it. I mean, it says for fans of Goosebumps, Goonies, Monster Squad, Steven Spielberg films, Don Bluth animated films. I assume there's definitely, just by looking at the cover, there's definitely the kid group is like a Goonies type thing when they're going on a mission, and I assume there's some sort of dark creatures, Nightcrawlers, I guess, going after them. I guess you can fill us in on the story you wrote.
Well, so basically the idea behind this is, I was thinking a while back, of like movies, horror movies, like the more adult ones, like slasher films, and films like Chucky and Friday the 13th and Jason and all that. And we always have the survivor, the last girl, the final girl, know. And then I was thinking, like, what if you had, all these people that survived these horrific slasher monsters, whatever, events. And what if they had to go to like a sort of like AA meeting,
I dig that. Nice.
To deal with that type of stuff. And originally it was going to be an adult thing. And then, I started thinking like, well, what if instead of adults, what if it's kids that, are the survivors, their families are wiped out or their parents are killed, these horrific, monstrous incidents that to regular people, it's like, oh, it's just an accident that happened, earthquake, car accident, pipe gas line, whatever. But these kids know that, it's monsters that basically left them orphans. So there's this old man who's this, Christopher Lee type, who's been in, 50, 60, 100 horror films, Hammer horror film type things, throughout his career when he was younger. But what people don't know is that he also fought real monsters,
Wow.
So it's like, actor by day, monster hunter by night. And he has this orphanage, it's very, which is X-Men, from being an X-Men fan, he's got this orphanage, which is for all these kids that were made orphans by these, these monstrous incidents, dealing with monsters and supernatural. And basically a group of these kids decide to, form a group called the Nightcrawlers to make sure that what happened to them never happened to any other kids again.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, thank you. In the first volume, they get hired by this kid at their school who thinks his parents have been replaced by werewolves. Yeah, he's basically let me say Christopher Lee type who who used to be imagine if Christopher Lee in his younger days was in the Hammer horror films, but then actually at night was actually fighting real monsters.
That's so awesome. Well, very cool. I mean, it's quite an honor to be on Zoop. I mean, they only take like the best of the best, in the comic graphic novel world. And it's kind of nice because they actually, do all like the heavy lifting. Because I've done a couple of crowd surfing in the past, and you spend so much time just mailing stuff out, you don't get anything done, So.
Oh yeah. We team. What happened is we pitched, me and Rachel Disler, the artist and co-creator, we pitched the book to Ablaze Publishing. They're Rich, who runs Ablaze. He's worked for Dynamite Entertainment in the past, and Ablaze puts out like a lot of European comics and now manga, and we're technically their first American creator-owned book and their first crowdfunded project. Yeah, so when we were talking about originally we were talking Kickstarter, then the whole Zoop thing started popping up, and then Zoop had reached out to him. So then, we said, oh, let's make it a Zoop thing. And then Zoop was down with it. And it sort of just, rolled from there. And it's been a lot of fun. Like the people at Zoop have been very supportive. They've been super behind this. They're very excited, to see how it does and where it goes. And they're offering a lot of, behind the scenes support. And they do a lot of the heavy, lifting in the long run. Cause it's basically, you're crowdfunding, then they'll be fulfilling and stuff like that. So they do the heavier work. And I crowdfunded a project around, but yeah, doing it by yourself is a very
yeah, it's definitely very, definitely a lot of work. So it's great you were with Zoop. So what are some of the rewards you're doing for the campaign through Zoop? Like, is there any fun things you're doing?
So as far as I remember, because we're finalizing the rewards. Well, depending on when this airs, since
I'm gonna have it air the day the campaign starts. So
okay, so the week before then, for people that are watching this, is when we're tomorrow, Friday, which will be the week before, is when we're finalizing the rewards. But one of them is gonna it be where you can get a print, I don't know if it's going to be poster size or what size print it's going to be, but it's going to be a schematic of the treehouse that the kids have.
Oh, cool.
because the kids have this like wicked, like, you know, imagine like, you know, the Ewoks, you know, tree houses, you know, in Star Wars. So they have like their own tree house that's like, you know, I think it's like 3 sections if I remember correctly. And Rachel's working on this whole schematic that's gonna like, you know, so you can see like their tree, the inside of their tree house and all the stuff and everything that they have there, like their section for, you know, monster hunting, you know, gadgetry, their section for hanging out, you know, and all this stuff where they have their meetings. So we're doing that, you know, the typical rewards like digital, the print book, it's gonna be a hardcover. We're gonna be doing stuff like sketches. You know, Rachel will be doing like sketches, that'll be a reward. Another reward I think will be drawn into the being drawn into the graphic novel. And then I know there'll be prints. We talk prints, trading cards. What else did we talk? Bookmarks, pins, you know, a variety of things. So we're finalizing all that stuff like tomorrow. So like when this launches next week, it'll be like, you know, it'll already been finalized. But very much, but pretty much a lot of the stuff that you see, you know, in crowdfunding nowadays, we're going to be doing, and some, you know, slightly different stuff because it's very much appealing to a slightly different audience.
Absolutely. Well, ever go to zoop.gg. You can also check out blazepublishing.com. And anything, what can we follow you personally on social media?
I'm on Twitter, Atomic Rex ENT, and then I'm on Facebook. You can just search me by Travis Dearly, or, you know, Marco Lopez. I don't have like, I just have a regular Facebook page where you just friend request me. I don't do one of those author pages. And then I'm on Instagram, but I don't use Instagram for work promotion. I just use it for personal stuff.
Gotcha.
So really for any like, you know, work promotion, geek stuff that I do, it's Twitter or Facebook.
Awesome. Yeah. Same for me, man. So cool, man. Anything else coming up you're allowed to talk about before I let you go?
I have a project. So there's this company in Spain called Spaceman Project. And they release, you know, graphic novels. They're a Spanish publisher, and they, you know, in Europe, and they release graphic novels. So we have a project, me and my co-creator Antonello, who's the artist. We have a project, a young adult project coming out from them because they also do crowdfunding. So we're going to be releasing a project called The Mortician's Assistant with them. Think, you know, basically Doctor Who meets, you know, Dylan Dog, or Doctor Who meets Constantine, you know, stuff like that. So it's basically like, you know, that old man and the young girl sidekick versus, you know, the terrors of the unknown. So, you know, that little Lovecraftian spin.
I love that. Well, cool, man. We'll keep up the amazing work and we'll talk down the road. All right.
All right, cool. Awesome. Thank you.